Hello everyone, welcome back to the AJ Aircraft 51-inch Baby Slick build video. Once again, my name is Tanner Curtis. I am with AJ Aircraft. We are gonna go ahead and do the first steps to assembling this aircraft. And as you can guess, we're going to put the landing gear on. It's important to get the airplane up on its own feet to help with the build process. This is a fairly simple and straightforward, just requires 3 tools. It's going to need a number 1 Phillips head, super common size. I think just about every American household should have one of those. We are going to need a 1.5 millimeter hex driver, preferably without the ball, just a regular flat tip. The ball on this one actually broke off, which makes it the perfect tool for this. And the last thing we'll need is a 3 millimeter hex driver. Again, you don't want the ball, you just want a straight hex driver. Okay, on top of the 3 basic tools, you'll need some other common items for any hobbyist, really. Some blue thread locker. Don't want to use red, you want to use blue. I don't have any comments on purple or green, so just stick with blue. Uncure. This isn't totally mandatory, but I fully endorse keeping a bottle of it on hand. I use it all the time, especially since you need some thin CA. This is basically what we call sticky water because it's about the same consistency. It gets everywhere. You can see it's all over this bottle from a number of times of being dumped over accidentally on the bench. Some blue masking tape. You'll need some drills. Excuse me, a drill. You just need one. And some drill bits. You also need 1 drill bit. You don't need the whole index. You just need the tiniest drill bit you got. A Dremel with a cutoff wheel. You'll need that to install the landing gear the correct way. And then finally, I have my old trusty Craftsman 1/4 inch socket driver set. You'll need the 8 millimeter to install the landing gear. And I think that's it for all the tools. First step we'll do here is we're going to lay the fuselage over onto its side to show the bottom. This is a carbon Kevlar reinforced in here. Super strong airplane. As you can see, the 2 bolts for the landing gear are already pre-installed. These are 3 millimeter metric bolts. This is what the 3 millimeter driver will go to. They should just be fairly loosely in there, so just go ahead and take them out. Okay, once those screws are removed, you will want to locate the landing gear bag. This one is Hardware's 51-inch slick V2 landing gear. This has all the hardware in it to mount the main gear as well as the gear legs. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up and spread it out and show you what comes with it. Okay, now that the bag's opened up, all the contents are out. We have 2 nice aluminum axles. They do have the machined wrench flats on the wheel side so that you can position them under the airplane and hold on to them while you're turning the nut. Speaking of nut, includes 2 lock nuts. These look like good quality lock nuts. Andrew doesn't really skimp too much on the hardware in his airplanes. 2 collars with set screws on either side. That's always nice, so you can double lock it in there. 2 3 millimeter washers, and we actually was surprised to see this tool in here. Nice tool that can be used to hold the axle while you tighten the nut. Okay, so we're going to work on the fuselage now, so go ahead and remove the canopy. Set that aside in a safe place. I work outside, so it's windy. I have had a hard time with canopies before. Go ahead and position your fuselage upside down. You may want an aircraft stand or some kind of holder so that you can work on it upside down. As you can probably surmise, we're going to go ahead and mount the main landing gear. It's going to be really hard to see on camera. You might be able to see it there, but this side of the landing gear to the right is the leading edge of the landing gear. It's the straight edge. The trailing edge of the landing gear will kind of have a taper forward as it goes down towards the gear, so make sure you mount it that way. The gear holes are drilled offset a little bit from center, which will match up with the offset holes in the fuselage to hopefully make that a little bit easier to get that orientation. So I'm going to go ahead and bolt this in right now. We are going to use the 3mm bolts that we removed, as well as the 3mm washers that were provided inside of the landing gear package. You will also want to use some Loctite on these bolts. Just some blue is more than plenty to hold them in there. You don't want them backing out on you. Okay, just if I can get my camera to focus, just a little dab of blue Loctite will do, yeah. I use BSI Loctite. I use pretty much BSI products almost exclusively. They're available in most hobby shops. They always have this label on pretty much all of them, different colors. This is the blue thread locker. They're easy to identify because they have this silver area up at the top that'll let the hobby shop place their shop name there. I'm going to go ahead and screw these in now. I don't think I need to film that. I think everybody knows how to put a screw in. Just wanted to show that all you need is a little blue dot on the tip of the threads. That's all you need. Okay, those are snugged in there. You don't need to crank these down and just torque the hell out of them. Just snug them down to the real good and tight. If you hear stuff starting to crack in, you're probably getting a little too tight there, so go ahead and stop. The thread locker will help keep it locked in there. Makes it a little bit vibration proof, so you should be fine at that point. Okay, next step, we're gonna put the axles on. This is a fairly simple, straightforward process. Just place the axle through the landing gear like that, and tighten up a lock nut on the other side. I'm going to use the provided tool to hold the axle still, and then I'm going to use an 8mm socket with driver to tighten that nut. An 8mm fits it perfectly. Okay, when installing your axles, make sure you leave about a 4 or 5mm gap, because the axle is what actually holds the wheel pant onto the airplane. So just leave that gap in there. We'll go ahead and install the wheel next with the collar, and then once that's in, we'll tighten this down, and then that'll complete the installation of one side of the landing gear. Alright, next step, you got to grind this little flat spot in the end of the axle using your Dremel with the cutoff wheel. This will help your collar bite into the axle so that it doesn't slip. So first we'll put the wheel on, super simple, and then we'll put the collar on the outside of that, put some blue thread locker on the collar, the grub screws in it, and crank it down. Okay, that's all thread locked on there. Try not to get the thread locker onto the plastic hub of the wheel, because the thread locker actually does eat the plastic, so just keep it away from there and you'll be fine. Last step we got to do here is we got to put the wheel pant on and tighten down the bolt on the inside there, and this side will be done. And voila, just like that, done. Don't crank this down because it is an aluminum axle, and you could also crush the fiberglass. Just crank it down so it's real snug and tight, but not so much that you're stressing the axle or cracking the fiberglass. All you got to do is repeat for the other side, and you'll be done with the landing gear installation. Okay, next step, gonna open up the Hardware's for 51-inch slick V2 tail undercarriage. So this is for the tail wheel assembly. Nice carbon fiber tail wheel arm. And the rod and the tiller arm. Good, nice, strong material. Good fit for this airplane. There's also 3 Phillips head screws. These are wood screws. They'll be self-tapping. We will go ahead and drill some holes in the bottom here. Some little tiny holes for the screws to bite into. We'll go ahead and run the screws down into them. We'll pull the screws out, drip some thin CA down in there to harden them, and then we'll install the screws one last time. Okay, mounting a tail wheel 101. It's a fairly straightforward process. That being said, there's a couple things you do need to pay attention to. First and foremost, if I can get it to focus here, see how this vertical line right here is right over the hinge line? That's what you want to make sure of. This will keep the tail wheel from having, it'll actually make it have a 1-to-1 ratio, so if you have 45 degrees of throw on the rudder, the tail wheel will also turn 45 degrees. If you move it too far this way, you'll get less, and too far this way, you'll get too much, and it will ground loop real easily. So try and get this wire to be directly over the hinge line. This area on the back of the vertical surface is the hinge line. This is where the rudder will get mounted up with the CA hinges. That's where you want it to be. Taping it in place before you drill the holes will help get the holes in the right area. I apologize about the camera work here. I am filming in the daylight. So just go ahead and tape it in place roughly on the center. You can locate the 2 holes in the tail wheel fairly easily, and I'm going to use I think it's a, I can't recall what size drill bit this is. It's very tiny. Just get the tiniest one you got, and it will work perfectly. You don't need a big hole, just a little tiny one. Just about on center line. So now what we're going to do in order to cut the threads for the hole is we're actually going to take the actual screw and we are going to thread it down into the hole. Make sure you use a hand tool to do this so you can turn it slowly. You don't want to turn it fast with an electric tool when you're first cutting the holes, otherwise you may wind up either stripping the head on the screw, or you could potentially drill too fast and ream the hole out. So just do it by hand. It's a pain in the butt. Trust me, I know. I got problems with my wrists and my arms, and I hate doing it, but just do it. It's gonna be less headache in the end. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna run them down and then back out both holes. Then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, so next step, take some thin CA. Just put a couple drops in the holes there. This will harden the threads in the hole. That way, when you put the screws in, they'll stay in there nice and tight. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then our tail wheel will be installed. And just like that, tail wheel is installed. The third screw that was supplied is the screw that will go through the tiller arm here and go into the bottom of the rudder. We will wait to install that until we actually install the rudder. That'll come at a later video when I hinge all the surfaces to the airplane using some thin CA. Now the very last step is securing this landing gear block trim piece in place. It does have an angled cut on both sides, so just make sure you're putting it in the right way so that it fits with the rest of the airplane. You can use whatever method you want to secure this. You could use a piece of blue covering that matches. You could use a drop of like foam tack or something like that on the bottom side to help hold it in. I'm going to use a tried and true method of clear packing tape. This way, if I ever need to remove it, all I got to do is remove the packing tape, real simple, and it'll come off and I can unbolt the landing gear. And just like that, a couple pieces of packing tape. She's secured on there. She won't come off. Hopefully you did yours a little cleaner than mine. It got some fingerprints on it, but oh well. won't hardly ever see that because it's on the bottom of the airplane and nobody's gonna see it that close. At this point, she's on our legs, standing on her own, and you can go ahead and proceed on to the next steps of assembly, which we will do in the upcoming videos. Until then, I got to get some more materials so we can continue on. Hopefully this video helped out with the first steps of getting your airplane up on its feet. As always, feel free to go ahead of me. I'm going to take my time building this airplane. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for watching.